We live in an age where people chase likes instead of meaning, trophies instead of truth, and quick wins instead of character. But what if the real failure isn't in losing? It's in never daring to live fully. Modern culture tells you to avoid pain, avoid discomfort, avoid risk. Yet anxiety, burnout, and emptiness have never been higher. Maybe the problem isn't that life is too hard, maybe. It's that we've been taught to live too soft. Everyone says success is about money, status, or recognition. But why do so many people who make it still feel restless and unfulfilled? The Stoics would argue that you've been chasing the wrong scoreboard all along. Welcome to StoicCraft, where ancient Stoic wisdom meets modern life. Here, we turn philosophy into practical tools for resilience, focus, and strength in a noisy, demanding world. Imagine looking back at your entire life and realizing that every setback, every fall, every challenge was never meant to hold you back. It was preparing you to become stronger. At first, it may sound like another motivational quote you scroll past online, but here's the uncomfortable truth most people avoid. You don't fail because life is unfair. You fail because you've been taught to run from the very things that could have made you unbreakable. The pain you dodge, the criticism you despise, the moments that wound your pride. These are the very flames the Stoics walked into willingly. They knew that only fire could burn away the weak parts and reveal the strength beneath. So ask yourself, how many times in your life have you avoided the very weight that could have forged you into someone unshakable? Stay with me, because what we're about to explore will shift the way you see failure, loss, and obstacles. And if you're ready to live with purpose instead of excuses, hit that subscribe button as a commitment to yourself, commitment to growth, to meaning, and to becoming who you were meant to be. Lesson 1. Pursue constant improvement. You've probably felt it before, that quiet thought at the end of the day whispering, I could have done more. It's not exactly regret, but a sense that you left part of your potential untouched. Almost everyone feels it at some point, whether it's about work, health, relationships, or even how we spend our free time. We scroll, we binge watch, we procrastinate, and then we promise ourselves that tomorrow will be different. But in truth, tomorrow rarely changes unless we do. The Stoics had a word for someone who lives each day trying to be just a little better than the day before: prokopton. It doesn't mean perfectionist, and it doesn't mean overachiever. It simply means a human being who accepts they're not finished yet, and never will be, but keeps moving forward. Marcus Aurelius, who had every excuse to believe he had already arrived, still wrote in Meditations, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. That isn't advice to leap into greatness overnight. It's a reminder that greatness begins with small steps, taken today. The pursuit of constant improvement isn't about chasing a finish line in the distance. It's about building the habit of showing up for yourself daily. Too many people think change happens in one dramatic burst: a new job, a breakthrough, a flash of motivation. But that illusion keeps you stuck. Real change is quiet, slow, and almost invisible at first. You won't notice much from one extra push-up today, but repeat it daily for a month and your body feels different. You won't feel smarter after 2 pages of reading tonight, but stack those nights together and your thoughts, your words, your decisions, they all transform. Aristotle, once said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Your future isn't built on what you do once. It's built on what you do consistently. The Stoics would remind you that your job tomorrow isn't to wake up and be completely transformed. To wake up and improve something, anything, even by just 1%. This way of living is powerful because it's honest. It doesn't depend on short-lived bursts of inspiration. It leans on discipline, small wins, and the humility to admit we're never done learning. Seneca put it simply, "While we teach, we learn." Every day you push yourself to grow, you not only move forward, you also discover more about who you are, where you're strong, and where you're still fragile. That's the point. It's not about obsessing over flaws, it's about becoming obsessed with possibilities. And here's something crucial. Improvement isn't just about adding new habits, it's also about subtracting what holds you back. Think of a sculptor. They don't create a masterpiece by adding more clay, but by chiseling away the excess. Your life works the same way. Improving your health might not start with a new workout. It might start with cutting out that daily soda. Sharpening your mind might begin with something as simple as turning off notifications for 1 hour each evening. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Sometimes improvement is nothing more than recognizing the unconscious habits quietly sabotaging you. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing they need to overhaul their entire life at once. As Stoic would say, start small, start where you are. If you can't meditate for 20 minutes, start with 1. If you can't run 5 miles, walk 1. The size of the action matters far less than the consistency of it. Epictetus, who was born a slave and became one of the most influential Stoic teachers, said, "No great thing is created suddenly." That's not permission to delay, it's an invitation to begin. Daily discipline is what defines you. And here's another key. Improvement only becomes addictive when you track it. Our brains are wired to crave progress, but they need proof. That's why the Stoics practice daily reflection. At the end of each day, they asked, "What did I do well? What did I do poorly? How can I do better tomorrow?" This simple audit turns each day into data highlighting patterns, weaknesses, and measurable progress. And here's the magic. Once you start to see growth, even small growth, you crave more. Progress becomes its own reward. It carries you through days when motivation is low because you don't want to break the chain you've built. But here's the reminder. The pursuit of constant improvement requires not only discipline, but also self-compassion. Because there will be days when you stumble. You will have days when nothing seems to work, when you skip the workout, eat the junk food, snap at someone you care about, or waste hours on things that don't matter. The Stoics never denied failure. They accepted it as part of the process. To live as a Procopton, a work in progress, is to accept that your life will always be under construction. It means seeing yourself not as a finished product, but as a project you shape daily. It's waking up each morning and asking, how can I be a little wiser, a little kinder, a little stronger than I was yesterday? And it's doing this not because you despise where you are, but because you respect who you have the potential to become. The Stoics remind us that the measure of a well-lived life isn't in the number of trophies or achievements, but in the depth of your character and the courage you showed while building it. If you truly want to live this way, the answer is simple. Start small. Don't take on 10 changes at once, just one. Do it today, repeat it tomorrow, then again the next day. Write it down. Track the progress. Over time, you'll look back and realize you're no longer the same person. And the beauty is, you won't even want to be, because you'll be too busy becoming someone better. Lesson 2. Stay on your path. There's a unique kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from working too hard, but from chasing too many things that don't matter. You know the feeling. You begin your day with a clear goal, but by bedtime you've been pulled in 10 different directions. An email here, a notification there, someone else's opinion slipping into your mind until you can't even remember what your focus was supposed to be. This is the trap most people fall into without noticing. They're drifting through life without a map, letting the world decide where they end up. The Stoics warned of this centuries ago. They knew that if you don't know where you're going, every road will look tempting, and every distraction will feel urgent. Seneca wrote, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." In other words, it's not about the speed of your life, it's about the direction. If you haven't chosen yours, the currents will choose for you. Staying on your path begins with clarity about what that path is. The Stoics often spoke of living in accordance with nature, not only the nature of trees and rivers, but the nature of your soul. What are you here for? What kind of person do you want to become? These aren't abstract philosophical riddles. They are your compass in a noisy, chaotic world. Without that compass, you drift. You wake up years later only to realize you've built a life around other people's expectations, not your own values. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, but you cannot become that person if you are constantly pulled into roles that don't fit, relationships that drain you, and goals that mean nothing to you." Once you know your direction, your North Star, as modern Stoics call it, you must guard it fiercely. Life will test your resolve. It will dangle quick money schemes that promise the world. It will tempt you with trends that look exciting but lead nowhere. It will hand you drama disguised as importance. The Stoics didn't teach us to escape the world, but to live within it without being ruled by it. Marcus Aurelius, burdened with the weight of an empire, reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Your path is not just about the goals you write on paper. It's about the discipline to silence the noise and keep moving forward when others are tossed around by every new distraction. But staying on your path doesn't mean becoming rigid. The Stoics understood that a tree too stiff will snap in a storm, but one with strong roots that can bend will survive. Life changes. Sometimes your path needs adjusting. Maybe your original plan no longer fits your reality. Maybe new experiences have reshaped your values. The key is that your adjustments come from alignment, not impulse. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do." That means your course corrections are intentional, guided by who you want to become, not by mood swings or peer pressure. One of the most powerful tools to stay on your path is reflection. The Stoics practiced this daily. Each night they asked themselves, did I live according to my values? Did anger, greed, or fear push me off course? Did I take steps toward the life I want, or did I let myself drift? You can do the same. Write down your values. Revisit them often. Measure your choices against them. This isn't only about the big milestones of life. It's about the small daily decisions that quietly shape who you are becoming. Choosing to have the tough conversation instead of avoiding it. Choosing to work on your craft instead of scrolling for hours. Choosing to say no when everyone expects you to say yes. The challenge is that distractions rarely look like distractions. They show up as opportunities. They feel urgent. They feel exciting. That's why so many people lose years chasing what only pulls them further from their true purpose. Stoic wisdom can protect you from that trap. The next time you face a decision, whether it's taking on a new project, saying yes to an invitation, or changing your plans, pause for just a moment and ask yourself, does this bring me closer to the person I want to become, or does it pull me further away? It's a simple question, but a powerful one. And if you answer it honestly, it can save you years of wasted energy on things that don't serve you. The truth is, staying on your path often feels lonely. Choosing focus over distraction makes you stand out. People might question your decisions. They might tell you that you're missing out, that you're being too rigid, too selective, too serious. But Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. You don't owe your time to every request. You don't owe your energy to every opportunity. You owe it to your purpose, to the life you're building deliberately, step by step. And here's something the Stoics understood deeply. Your path isn't just for you. When you live with discipline, clarity, and integrity, you become an example. To others, you show them it's possible to live with intention in a chaotic, noisy world. You give them silent permission to create their own boundaries, define their own goals, and protect their own focus. Carl Jung once warned, the world will ask you who you are, and if you do not know, the world will tell you. Staying on your path is having your answer ready before the world tries to write one for you. Of course, this isn't about perfection. You will drift sometimes. You will get distracted. You'll take detours you later regret. The Stoics didn't view this as failure. They saw it as part of being human. What matters most is noticing when you've wandered and returning to your path as soon as possible. Think of it like walking through a forest. You may step off the trail, but if you know your destination, you can always find your way back. That's why writing down your values and goals is so important. They become your map, the guideposts you can return to whenever you feel lost. In the end, staying on your path means living with intention in a world designed to reward distraction. It's about choosing based on your deepest values, not your fleeting moods. It's about finding the courage to walk away from things that glitter but don't help you grow. And it's about remembering that every single step forward or backward shapes the person you are becoming. The Stoics knew this. A life without direction is a life wasted. They chose their path and walked it with purpose. And you can do the same. So decide now, what's your North Star? What are the non-negotiables in your life? What will you say yes to? And what will you have the strength to say no to? Write them down. Keep them close. And the next time the world tries to pull you into chaos, remember, you've got somewhere important to be. Keep walking toward it. Lesson 3. Let go of outcomes. There's a unique anxiety that creeps in when you've done everything right, yet the results are still uncertain. You study for weeks, and the exam still might go badly. You pour your heart into a relationship, and it still might end. You give your best at work, and the promotion still goes to someone else. This is one of life's most frustrating truths. Effort does not guarantee the reward you expect, but the Stoics would tell you this isn't a reason to quit. It's a reason to redefine success. They believed the only true failure is abandoning your own principles. The need for control is deeply human. We want to believe that if we check every box, life will reward us with exactly what we imagined. But life isn't a vending machine. You don't insert effort and get a guaranteed outcome. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They taught that the world is full of variables you will never influence. Luck, timing, the choices of others, even the forces of nature. Trying to control these things is like trying to hold back the tide with your bare hands. It only drains you. Epictetus said it bluntly, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." This isn't passivity. It's strategy. When you stop obsessing over what you cannot control, your mind is freed. You redirect your energy toward what actually lies within your grasp. And when you let go of outcomes, something remarkable happens. You start to live fully in the present. You stop asking, "Will this pay off?" and start asking, "Am I doing this well?" You go to the gym not because you're chasing a certain number on the scale, but because you value health. You work hard not because recognition is guaranteed, but because excellence matters to you. You love not because you expect love in return, but because loving is who you want to be. It's easy to misunderstand this idea. Letting go of outcomes doesn't mean lowering your standards. It doesn't mean drifting aimlessly without goals. The Stoics weren't saying, "Don't care." They were saying, "Aim high, give your best effort, but recognize that the target is never fully in your control. You still set goals. You still strive for excellence. But you measure yourself not by the applause of the world, but by your effort, your discipline, and your integrity." Seneca put it perfectly. The wise man regards the reason for all his actions, not their results. That's the core. Why you act matters more than how things turn out. One of the best ways to practice this is to separate the process from the prize. I imagine planting a tree. You nurture it, water it, protect it. But whether it bears fruit isn't fully yours to decide. What's yours is the act of planting, of tending, of showing up each day with care. You can prepare the soil, water it, protect it from pests, but you can't force a tree to grow faster. Your responsibility is the care, not the harvest. The Stoics saw life the same way. You give your best effort with excellence, and then you allow nature to take its course. This is far harder than it sounds, because our culture constantly pushes us to measure worth by results, numbers, rankings, applause, awards. It takes real mental discipline to remind yourself that these things are not the truest signs of success. The truest sign is this: knowing you stayed true to your values, even when the outcome didn't match your expectations. And here's the paradox: when you let go of outcomes, you actually become better at what you do. When you're obsessed with results, you tighten up, you hesitate, you play it safe. But when you focus on the process, you approach life with more courage, freedom, and creativity. Think about athletes. They often perform at their peak when they forget about the scoreboard and simply play the game. The Stoics grasped this long before sports psychology existed. By releasing the need to win in a specific way, you give yourself permission to engage fully with the task at hand. And paradoxically, this often produces better results. But even when it doesn't, you still win in the ways that truly matter. Of course, none of this means disappointment won't hurt. You can pour your heart into something and still feel crushed if it falls apart. The Stoics never denied this pain. They acknowledged it and faced it. Marcus Aurelius admitted in his writings that setbacks sting, but he reminded himself that, while pain is temporary, perspective is permanent. Letting go of outcomes also frees you from the endless trap of comparison. When you measure your life only by external results, your eyes are always sideways. Who's ahead? Who's behind? Who's doing better? But when you measure by effort, by discipline, by integrity, you only look inward. Am I better than I was last month? Did I act in line with my principles today? Did I give what I had to give? This is progress no one can take from you. And in a strange way, letting go of outcomes makes life more adventurous. When you're not chained to how things must turn out, you become more willing to try, to risk, to explore. Failure becomes feedback, not a verdict on your worth. You stop demanding that every step lead exactly where you planned, and instead you begin to see detours as part of the map. The Stoics called this living in harmony with nature, trusting that the river of life will carry you where you need to go. So long as you keep rowing with skill and intention. The modern world makes this harder than ever. Everything is built around instant feedback. You post online and check for likes within minutes. You start a project and expect results immediately. Stoic wisdom is the antidote to this impatience. It reminds you the timeline isn't yours to control. Your responsibility is to act with excellence now without demanding that reality bend to your schedule. That isn't resignation, that's mastery. It means you're no longer a hostage to things beyond your control. And this mindset builds resilience. If your happiness depends on life going exactly as you want, the world will break you again and again. But if your peace depends on whether you acted well, nothing can take it away. Carl Jung captured it. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. Outcomes belong to the world. Effort belongs to you. And that's where your strength and identity live. So how do you live this out? Start small. Choose one thing you care about: your health, your work, your relationships, and commit to giving your best without obsessing over the payoff. Practice catching yourself when your mind jumps ahead to results you can't control. Gently bring it back to what you're doing right now. Celebrate the days when you acted with courage and consistency, even if no immediate reward followed. Over time, you'll notice something profound. You'll feel lighter. You'll stop riding the emotional roller coaster of highs and lows dictated by external circumstances. Instead, you'll find a steadiness that's rare in this world. The Stoics never promised that letting go of outcomes would make life easier. They promised it would make you stronger. And strength, in their eyes, was the ultimate reward. So work hard, care deeply, aim high. But when the time comes to release the results, let them go with grace. Because the real victory isn't in what you get, it's in who you become while giving your best. Lesson 4. You attract what you embody. Have you ever noticed how two people can walk into the exact same situation and walk out with completely different experiences? One leaves bitter, convinced the world is selfish and hostile. The other leaves uplifted, grateful for the kindness they witnessed. The difference isn't always the world, it's the lens they carried into it. The truth is, we don't see life as it is. We see it as we are. Walk into the world expecting conflict, and you'll catch every insult while overlooking every kindness. Walk in seeking growth, and you'll find lessons even in hardship. The Stoics grasped this long before modern psychology gave it a name. They believed the character you cultivate becomes the filter for every experience you live. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Imagine your thoughts as the dye seeping into the water of your mind. Everything you experience gets filtered through the state of your mind. If your thoughts are colored with envy, anger, or fear, even neutral events will feel threatening or unfair. But if you've trained yourself to cultivate virtues, patience, courage, compassion, you'll see the same world through a lens that strengthens you rather than weakens you. This is why Stoic philosophy emphasizes self-mastery so strongly. The Stoics weren't telling you to change the entire world. They were telling you to change the way you show up in it. Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And your reaction doesn't just affect the moment, it sets the tone for your life. Respond to challenges with bitterness, and you'll invite more situations that feed that bitterness. Respond with calm and integrity, and you'll draw in people and opportunities aligned with that same energy. Think about the people you're naturally drawn to. Chances are they radiate something you value: confidence, kindness, stability, enthusiasm. They're not perfect, but there's something about how they carry themselves that makes you feel safe, inspired, or energized. That's no accident. Human beings pick up subtle cues all the time: tone of voice, body language, the way someone listens or ignores. You're always giving off signals, whether you realize it or not. And those signals shape the quality of your relationships, opportunities, and challenges. Here's the hard truth. What you attract is not always what you say you want, it's what you are. You can say you crave deep, honest relationships, but if you gossip or betray trust, you'll attract others who do the same. You can say you want financial stability, but if you live recklessly with money, you'll invite chaos into your finances. The Stoics never taught people to manifest a better life with wishful thinking. Instead, they said, embody the qualities of the life you want, and let reality respond in its own time. Seneca reminded us, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. Embody gratitude, and you'll see wealth in what you already have. This is why self-awareness is crucial. The Stoics practiced daily reflection, not just to review their actions, but to examine their mindset. At the end of each day, they asked, "What occupied my thoughts today? Which emotions shaped my decisions? Did I embody the virtues I value, or did I slip back into habits I want to leave behind?" This wasn't about judgment, it was about alignment. Carl Jung echoed a lesson the Stoics would have agreed with. The shadow self, the parts of us we reject or ignore, has a way of leaking into our behavior. If you haven't faced your anger, you'll keep encountering situations that provoke it. If you bury your insecurity, you'll keep meeting people who trigger it. That's why embodying what you want to attract isn't about putting on a mask of positivity. It's about doing the inner work to bring your thoughts, beliefs, and actions into alignment with the values you truly admire. Another Stoic insight: embodying certain virtues doesn't just change what you attract, it changes what you notice. Imagine walking into a crowded room looking for a friend. You filter out dozens of faces until you spot the one you seek. In the same way, when you embody patience, you notice chances to practice it. When you embody gratitude, you start seeing blessings you once ignored. This is why some people seem lucky. They're tuned to notice opportunities others miss because they're blinded by fear or negativity. But let's be clear, changing what you embody is not easy. It's uncomfortable. It means taking responsibility for the patterns in your life instead of blaming bad luck, other people, or the universe. The Stoics believed this responsibility was the highest form of freedom. No, you cannot control everything. That comes your way. You will still face rude people, setbacks, and loss. But when you embody resilience, setbacks become training grounds. When you embody self-respect, you stop entertaining relationships that drain you. When you embody discipline, temptations lose their power. The state of your inner world becomes a shield against the chaos of the outer world. One of the most practical Stoic practices is to focus on one cardinal virtue at a time: wisdom, courage, justice, or temperance. Choose one and live it deliberately for a week. Each morning, ask yourself, how can I practice this virtue today? Each night, reflect on how you did. Over time, these virtues stop being things you practice. They become who you are. And when that shift happens, life starts changing in ways that feel natural rather than forced. The reality is, you're already attracting things into your life: people, opportunities, challenges, all shaped by who you've been up until this moment. If you want different results, you don't just set new goals, you change your presence. You don't just wish for better friends, you become the kind of friend worth having. You don't just hope for a better career, you carry yourself like someone ready for more responsibility. The Stoics believed virtue is its own reward, but they also knew it creates ripples. Embody integrity and you'll earn trust. Embody patience and you'll create peace. When you embody courage, you inspire others to be brave, and those ripples inevitably return to you, often in ways you couldn't have imagined. So take a moment today for a quick check-in. What energy are you putting into the world? What are you embodying through your words, your habits, your choices? Because the world is paying attention, whether you realize it or not. And even more importantly, you're shaping the very life you'll walk into tomorrow. That the Stoics would tell you that none of this is magic. It's simply cause and effect. Who you are determines what your life becomes. Lesson 5. Embrace challenges. There's always that split second at the beginning of every challenge when your instincts scream, "Push this away." It's the moment when frustration, fear, or even panic rushes in before your mind has time to reason. Maybe it's the phone call that flips your plans upside down, the project at work that suddenly doubles in scope, or the painful personal loss you never saw coming. In that first wave, the natural thought is, why me? Why now? But the truth is, life has never promised smooth sailing. It has only ever promised to be unpredictable. The Stoics didn't just accept this, they expected it. And because they expected it, they prepared for it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning, "Today you will meet with meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly people." He didn't write this to become cynical. He wrote it to be ready. If you know the waves are coming, you learn how to surf them instead of drowning. This shift seeing challenges, not as intrusions, but as part of the path, changes everything. Epictetus told his students, "Difficulties show what men are." His point was simple. Comfort conceals our true character, but adversity reveals it. Anyone can seem calm, wise, and patient when the skies are clear. But who are you when the storm arrives? That is the question that shapes your destiny. The Stoics viewed every obstacle as training ground opportunities to strengthen patience, courage, resilience, and self-control. A flat tire in the rain may be frustrating, but it's also a chance to practice composure. An unexpected bill may be stressful, but it's also a test in discipline and resourcefulness. Every inconvenience carries a lesson disguised as a problem. Carl Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." The same is true when you meet a challenge. In that collision, transformation is inevitable. The only question is, will it make you smaller or will it make you stronger? The Stoics believe the choice is always yours, not in whether challenges appear, but in how you respond. Society often sells us a vision of success as a clean, linear climb. Social media especially loves to highlight the polished outcomes, perfect homes, thriving careers, joyful relationships, without showing the messy process beneath. But the Stoics would tell you, the smooth path is an illusion. The road to anything meaningful is paved with struggle, uncertainty, and setbacks. Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." That resistance you feel when life pushes back, that's the polishing. Without it, you remain dull, untested, fragile. When you start embracing challenges, you stop wasting energy wishing they'd go away. Instead, you channel that energy into adapting. You begin asking, what is this moment here to teach me? What strength is it demanding that I haven't yet built? That's not denial, it's engagement. It's choosing to live in the real world rather than the fantasy of how you wish it would be. And with that choice, you stop seeing yourself as a victim of your circumstances. You begin to see yourself as an active participant in your own growth. Of course, this perspective doesn't appear automatically. Your first reaction to hardship will almost always be emotional. The Stoics didn't ask you to suppress it. They asked you to notice it, pause, and then choose your next move with intention. That pause between reaction and action, that is where Stoic power lives. In that space you decide, will this event harden me with bitterness or harden me with strength. Let's be honest, some challenges don't feel like lessons when you're in the middle of them. Illness, betrayal, financial collapse, these can break your spirit if you face them without guidance or support. The Stoics never denied the pain of these moments, but they refused to let the pain be meaningless. They searched for the thread of growth hidden within the suffering. If your body weakens, maybe it's time to strengthen patience and acceptance. If you're betrayed, maybe it's a call to sharpen discernment and learn who deserves your trust. If you lose what you thought you couldn't live without, maybe it's a reminder of how much you truly can endure. Jung also observed, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." The Stoics would have nodded in agreement because they knew that struggle is not the opposite of growth. It's the soil it grows from. What Jung meant is that your capacity for greatness is inseparable from your capacity to endure hardship. You cannot rise higher without also going deeper. Often it is the descent into difficulty that makes the climb possible. The Stoics understood this with clarity. They didn't just prepare themselves for difficulty. They valued it as the very thing that made life meaningful. To them, a life without challenges was a life without growth. One of their practical methods for embracing challenges was to rehearse them in advance. Seneca called this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. By imagining loss, delay, or failure before it happened, not to make themselves anxious, but to be ready, they disarmed the element of surprise. That way, when obstacles arrived, they weren't intruders, they were expected guests. Fear transformed into familiarity. You may not control the challenge, but you can control how prepared you feel when it comes. Another method was to deliberately practice discomfort. Stoics would sometimes sleep on hard floors, wear coarse clothing, or eat simple. Meals not because they lacked better options, but because they wanted to train for adversity. Modern life offers countless opportunities for the same. Take the harder route to strengthen resilience. Have the difficult conversation to build courage. Volunteer for the project that feels just beyond your skill set to sharpen competence. When you make challenge a choice, you fear it less when it arrives uninvited. The irony is that the more you embrace challenges, the more they begin to feel like allies. They strip away the unnecessary, reveal your true strength, and sharpen edges you didn't know you had. Over time, you stop resisting them, not because you enjoy suffering, but because you trust yourself to handle it. That trust becomes freedom. The person who fears no challenge becomes the person who cannot be controlled by life's turbulence. Marcus Aurelius, burdened with constant political and military crises, still found gratitude for the obstacles in his life. In his writings, he reflected on how each one shaped him into the leader and man he needed to be. That's the quiet Stoic truth. Hardships aren't detours from the path. They are the path. Without them, the journey is shallow, and so are we. So the next time you're in the thick of something painful, instead of asking, "Why me?" try asking, "Why not me?" What better moment to practice the very strengths you admire in others? What better chance to prove to yourself that you can adapt, endure, and grow stronger? That is the Stoic way, not to run from difficulty, but to face it with steady eyes and steady hands, knowing it is shaping you into someone you might never have become otherwise. Because in the end, the challenges you embrace don't just make you better at surviving. They make you better at living. Lesson 6. Small steps, big impact. There's a certain paralysis that creeps in when you stare too far ahead. You see the mountain and convince yourself you'll never climb it, so you don't even take the first step. It's the book you dream of writing but never start because 300 pages feels impossible. It's the fitness goal you abandon before day 1 because the finish line looks too far away. It's the debt you avoid because the numbers seem overwhelming. This is one of the most common traps in life, thinking so big that you make yourself too small to begin. The Stoics understood that daunting goals are conquered not in leaps but in steady, deliberate steps. They didn't chase perfection, they chased consistency. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Don't waste the rest of your time here worrying about other people unless it affects the common good. It will keep you from doing anything useful." In other words, focus on the work in front of you. Don't let distractions rob you of the moment you can control. If your goal is to write a book, today's page is the only one you can actually write. If you want to run a marathon, today's run is the only one that counts. You can't finish the journey in one move, but you can move forward now. Small steps matter because they shrink the goal until it feels less intimidating. Carl Jung once said, "Nothing happens until something moves." And that something doesn't have to be massive. It just has to be enough to break inertia. One deliberate action creates momentum. Momentum builds confidence. And confidence is what turns the impossible into the inevitable. This is why the Stoics valued effort over results. Outcomes may take months or years to arrive, but the effort you give today is immediate and it's yours. There's another reason small steps are powerful. They build habits. Habits are the quiet architects of your life. You don't notice their influence in a week, but over years they shape your health, your relationships, your mindset, even your financial stability. The Stoics knew that excellence isn't a single act, it's the repetition of the right acts. Epictetus said it simply. First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. You decide the person you want to become, and then you prove it with daily actions. Small choices repeated again and again form a pattern, a character you can trust. The modern world sells quick wins and overnight transformations. But Stoic wisdom reminds us that greatness is built brick by brick, step by step. The Stoics would see through the illusion of overnight success instantly. They knew that anything built quickly can collapse just as fast. They would rather watch you take a small, steady step every day than see you make one dramatic leap you can't sustain. If you want to master a skill, don't wait for the perfect weekend to binge for hours. Give it 15 minutes of focused effort each day. If you want to improve your health, start with an after-dinner walk instead of trying to overhaul your diet and fitness routine overnight. The beauty of small steps is that they compound. Just like compound interest in finance, the gains build on each other. A single dollar saved may not seem like much, but save it daily, and it grows into something significant. The same is true for habits, for skills, for character. Each small choice is like a brick. On its own, it doesn't seem like much, but brick by brick, you build a fortress. The Stoics called this living in agreement with nature, working with the natural rhythm of growth, instead of fighting against it by demanding instant results. Carl Jung echoed this idea from a psychological perspective. He explained that transformation requires balance between conscious effort and unconscious integration. Big, sudden changes often fail because they overwhelm the psyche. Small, deliberate steps succeed because they give your deeper self-time to absorb the shift and make it part of your identity. So how do you put this into practice? Each morning, ask yourself, what is one small thing I can do today that moves me forward? Not 10 things, not a perfectly planned day, just one. Write it down. Do it. Then tomorrow, ask again. The Stoics believed life is lived one present moment at a time, so they focused on what could be done now. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, confine yourself to the present. If the present is all you can control, then the smallest meaningful action you take in it is already a victory. The danger of small steps, of course, is that they're easy to dismiss. Skipping one workout feels harmless. Eating one unhealthy meal doesn't seem like a big deal. Not writing a single page today looks insignificant. But these omissions also compound, just like positive actions do, and they pull you in the opposite direction. The Stoics would urge you to treat every small choice as significant, because every action is a vote for the kind of life you're building. This is where their practice of daily self-auditing comes in. At the end of each day, they reflected. What did I do? What did I avoid? What can I improve tomorrow? It wasn't about guilt, it was about awareness. Over time, that awareness sharpened their decision-making, making their small steps more intentional and effective. And here's the real magic. Small steps build identity. Over time, you start to see yourself as someone who shows up even in small ways. That identity becomes self-reinforcing. The longer you keep it alive, the harder it is to break. This is why the Stoics valued consistency over intensity. 1. Great day doesn't matter much if it's followed by weeks of nothing. But steady small wins, day after day, create a track record you can trust, especially when motivation fades. And it will fade. That's why small steps are so important. They're sustainable. You won't always have the energy for a giant leap, but you can almost always take one small step. Some days the step will be larger. Some days it may feel tiny. The size doesn't matter. What matters is that you keep moving. This steady motion is what protects you from the stagnation that kills most dreams before they have a chance to breathe. In the end, the Stoics weren't just teaching a strategy for goals. They were teaching a way of living a way that honors the limits of human willpower and the unpredictability of life. You can't control when the mountain will be climbed, but you can control whether you take the next step today. And in their eyes, that's all that truly matters. So when you feel overwhelmed by the scale of your ambitions, remember, you don't have to conquer the whole mountain right now. You just have to do the next small thing. Write the page, make the call, save the dollar, take the walk. These are the bricks that build the life you want. They may not look like much in the moment, but years from now you'll look back and realize they were everything. Lesson 7. Redefine success. There's a peculiar emptiness that comes when you finally grasp the thing you thought would make you happy, only to realize it doesn't feel the way you imagined. Maybe it's the promotion that brought more stress than satisfaction. Maybe it's the shiny new car that thrilled you for a week before it faded into just another object in the driveway. Or maybe it's the quick rush of social recognition, likes, praise, and attention that disappears so fast you're left craving the next hit. We live in a world that tells us, day after day, that success means having more, showing more, proving more. But the Stoics would simply smile at this, not from arrogance, but from understanding. They knew chasing society's definition of success is like running on a treadmill. You sweat, you push, you exhaust yourself, yet you stay in the same place. For the Stoics, success was never an outer display, it was an inner victory. Marcus Aurelius, who had every luxury at his command as Emperor of Rome, still wrote in Meditations, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." These weren't the words of a man who lacked wealth or power. They were the insights of a man who had everything and still recognized it wasn't the source of peace. To him, real success wasn't measured in titles or possessions, but in living aligned with justice, wisdom, and courage. His true scoreboard was simple. Could he look in the mirror each night knowing he had lived with integrity? The tragedy is that most people spend their lives chasing who they think others want them to be. They mold themselves to fit in, chase trends, and measure their worth against highlight reels curated by strangers. The Stoics would call this restlessness, a trap, because the goalposts will always move. If your happiness depends on external applause, you'll never own it. It will always belong to someone else's opinion. Seneca reminded his friend, Lucilius, "A man is not called happy because he has a large fortune, but because he has a virtuous soul." To the Stoics, virtue was the true wealth living with reason, integrity, and moral clarity. That meant being honest even when lying was easier, choosing fairness even when it cost you something, mastering your impulses because you valued self-control over fleeting pleasure. This type of success doesn't always earn applause. It often goes unnoticed. But it's the kind of success that lets you sleep deeply at night, knowing you didn't betray yourself. Redefining success, the Stoic way, begins with a shift from outcome to process. Instead of asking, "What can I get?" you ask, "Who can I become?" And then you measure your progress not by grand achievements, but by the small, daily acts of character that move you closer to that person. Did you act with courage today? Did you respond to frustration with more patience than last year? Did you stay true to your values when compromise was tempting? By this measure, a quiet act of integrity outweighs a public act of ambition. It's a common misunderstanding to think Stoicism is against ambition. It isn't. The Stoics weren't against building wealth, influence, or great works. They were against being owned by those things. Epictetus put it bluntly, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. If you can want less, you can enjoy more. That is true freedom, when desires don't control you." This kind of thinking is radical in a world that constantly tells you to chase more. And it's not just about resisting materialism, it's about rejecting a definition of success that leaves you anxious, empty, or inauthentic. Carl Jung said it well, "The world will ask you who you are, and if you do not know, the world will tell you." Redefining success starts with answering that question yourself, building your life on your own foundation instead of someone else's blueprint. When you shift your perspective this way, you begin noticing success in places you once overlooked. A parent patiently teaching their child to manage frustration. A colleague owning a mistake instead of covering it up. A person walking away from a profitable deal because it harms others. These moments may never make magazine covers, but they build unshakable character. And character, the Stoics would argue, is the one form of success you can carry everywhere, untouched by fortune or loss. The second Stoic shift is from speed to depth. Modern culture glorifies the fastest wins, the overnight sensation, the viral hit, the instant transformation. But Stoic success values endurance over spectacle. Marcus Aurelius cautioned, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That's the kind of slow, deliberate living that builds a legacy rather than just a headline. It's about playing the long game, investing in your craft, in your relationships, and in your inner growth, knowing that the rewards worth having are usually the slowest to arrive. Jung might say that approval becomes dangerous when it feeds. Your persona, the mask you wear for the world at the expense of your deeper self. The persona is necessary for moving through society, but when you over-identify with it, you forget the real person behind it. You start performing instead of living. This is why rejecting the need for approval feels so liberating. It's the moment you take off the mask and finally let yourself breathe. One practical Stoic way to loosen approval's grip is to get crystal clear on your own values. The Stoics placed values above everything else: virtue, wisdom, courage, justice. If you know what you stand for, you can measure your choices against that standard rather than against public opinion. Feedback may still come, but it won't override your principles. This creates an inner stability. Approval can rise and fall, but self-respect endures. Another way is to deliberately expose yourself to small doses of disapproval. The Stoics often practiced voluntary discomfort, sleeping on hard floors, wearing plain clothes, eating simple meals, not because they couldn't afford better, but to strengthen resilience. You can apply the same practice socially. Share an honest opinion even when you know it won't win applause. Say no to something you don't want to do, even if it disappoints someone. Over time, you learn that disapproval isn't fatal. It's uncomfortable, but you can handle it. Seneca put it clearly. Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Surrounding yourself with people who value integrity over flattery helps break the need for constant validation. When your circle encourages authenticity, you feel less pressure to perform and more freedom to be yourself. And when criticism does come from outside that circle, it's easier to see it for what it is, just another opinion, not a verdict on your worth. Even the greatest figures in history had critics. Socrates was condemned by his city. Cato the Younger was despised by the corrupt. Marcus Aurelius faced political rivals who questioned his every decision. If these men, guided by virtue, couldn't please everyone, why should you expect to? The goal is not universal approval. The goal is universal self-respect. Jung also warned that living for approval keeps you from individuation, becoming your whole unique self. If you shape yourself entirely around others' expectations, you never integrate the parts of you that don't fit their mold. Those rejected parts don't disappear, they resurface as tension, frustration, and dissatisfaction. The only cure is to stop outsourcing your identity, and rejecting the need for approval. You may lose some people, especially those who are drawn to the performance, not the person. And while that can sting, it's also clarifying. What remains are relationships built on respect for who you truly are. Those relationships are worth infinitely more than 1,000 shallow compliments. Living this way even changes how you view achievement. You stop asking, will people be impressed? And instead ask, does this align with my principles? The shift is subtle but life-changing. You stop chasing applause and start chasing meaning. And meaning, unlike approval, is something you can create and keep no matter who is watching. Here's the real freedom. Most people aren't thinking about you nearly as much as you think they are. They're too busy thinking about themselves. That realization should be a relief. You can stop curating every moment for an imaginary audience and start living for the one judge who will be with you every moment of your life yourself. Praise will come and go. Criticism will come and go. But the peace of knowing you lived by your values, that stays. And as the Stoics knew, that's the only approval that truly matters. Lesson 9. Master the art of saying no. There's a quiet danger in life that rarely announces itself. It sneaks in disguised as opportunity, politeness, or just one small favor. It's the danger of saying yes too often. At first, it feels harmless, even generous. You agree to help a coworker with their project. You show up to an event you don't care about. You accept a commitment because you don't want to disappoint anyone. Each yes seems small, but over time, every unnecessary yes steals a piece of your time, energy, and focus, pieces you will never get back. One day you wake up to find your schedule packed with things that don't matter, while the things that do matter are perpetually postponed. The Stoics would tell you that later is a dangerous illusion. All we truly have is now, and now is too valuable to give away carelessly. This isn't meant to be morbid, it's meant to be clarifying. If your time is finite, then every yes must be treated like a rare coin. The Stoics believed our most precious possession is our attention, and how we spend it determines the shape of our lives. Saying yes to something meaningless isn't harmless politeness, it's an act of self-neglect. Because every yes to what doesn't matter is also a no to what could enrich your life, deepen your relationships, or move you closer to your purpose. Saying no is part of doing. It's how you enforce the life you claim to value. If you want more time for health, you must say no to commitments that rob you of rest and exercise. If you want to grow in your craft, you must say no to distractions disguised as urgent obligations. Every no is a boundary protecting what matters most. But there's an art to it, because saying no isn't about building walls of resentment. It's about building gates with intention. The Stoics valued kindness and community, so they would never advise you to reject every request outright. The key is discernment. Ask yourself, does this align with my values? Does it move me toward my goals? Will saying yes here mean saying no to something more important? Marcus Aurelius would remind you to weigh each choice against the brevity of life. When you see your hours as precious, you naturally guard them more carefully. One of the biggest obstacles to mastering this art is fear, the fear of disappointing others, missing out, or being judged as selfish. But here's the paradox. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you plant a seed of quiet resentment toward the very people you're trying to please. Over time, that resentment corrodes the relationship far more than an honest no ever would. Seneca observed, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." If you scatter yourself across other people's priorities, you'll vanish from your own life. A well-placed no, delivered kindly but firmly, is an act of respect not only for yourself, but also for the person asking. It communicates that you take both your time and theirs seriously. Jung's perspective adds another layer. Every no is a declaration of identity. Each one says, "This is who I am, and this is what I will protect." Without those boundaries, you become endlessly flexible, so flexible that you lose all shape. And the Stoics knew, living without shape is living without purpose. A ship without a destination drifts, no matter how favorable the winds. The Stoics also prized clear, direct communication. A good no doesn't need elaborate excuses. It can be simple. "I appreciate the offer, but I can't commit right now." Or, "That's not something I can take on at the moment." Or, "Thank you for thinking of me, but I need to focus on my priorities." Each one respects the request while upholding your boundary. But perhaps the hardest no is the one you give yourself. The Stoics believed self-mastery was the foundation of freedom. That means saying no to your impulses. No to the easy escape instead of the difficult work. No to the comfort of procrastination instead of the discomfort of progress. This inner discipline reshapes your experience of time. Life begins to feel less frantic, not because the world slows down, but because you stop filling your hours with noise. You begin to notice clarity in your decisions and a deeper sense of ownership over your days. The time you protect with your no becomes fertile ground space where your most meaningful work, relationships, and growth can flourish. Saying no is not rejecting life, it's choosing life on purpose. By guarding your time like a dragon guards its treasure, you ensure that every yes you give is meaningful, powerful, and aligned with the person you want to become. And those yeses carry far more weight because they're chosen, not defaulted dot. So the next time a request comes, pause. Ask yourself, does this serve my values? Does this align with who I want to become? If the answer is no, then say no without guilt, but with gratitude for the chance to protect what matters most. Because in the end, every no you give to the meaningless is also a yes to the meaningful. And that, the Stoics would say, is the highest form of self-respect. Lesson 10. Let go with indifference. There's a heaviness that builds when you spend too much time on things you cannot change. You've probably felt it, scrolling through headlines that only leave you tense and angry, replaying a conversation, and your head long after it's done, worrying about an outcome that's already out of your control. It's like carrying a backpack full of bricks that were never yours to carry. The longer you hold on to them, the heavier they feel, and the slower you move through life. The Stoics knew this burden well, and they had a solution that sounds almost radical. Put the backpack down, not by ignoring reality, but by recognizing that not all of it belongs to you. You may not control the storm, but you do control your response. Do you curse the clouds? Do you build a shelter? Do you dance in the rain? That choice belongs to you, and it's in that space of choice where your freedom lives. The Stoics called this practice apatheia, a term often misunderstood as apathy. But it's not about not caring, it's about caring wisely. It's the discipline of protecting your peace by refusing to pour energy into what doesn't deserve it. Epictetus explained that life has two domains: what is up to us and what is not. The moment you invest your emotional energy into what is not, you surrender your stability to forces that couldn't care less about your well-being. It's like investing all your money in a market. You cannot influence, it's a guaranteed loss. Think of your mental energy like currency. You only have a limited amount to spend each day. Where are you investing it? Are you buying peace, clarity, and progress? Or are you wasting it on arguments you'll never win, fears that may never happen, and resentment toward people who may never change? The Stoics would say, the choice is yours, but the cost is always real. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, do not waste the rest of your time here worrying about other people unless it affects the common good. This wasn't coldness, it was efficiency. Even as Emperor of Rome, he knew that if he allowed every outside force to pull on his attention, he'd have nothing left for what truly mattered. Letting go with indifference is not about detachment from life, it's about devotion to what's essential. It's about becoming selective with your attention. You don't need to respond to every comment, fight every battle, or weigh in on every controversy. Sometimes the wisest move is no move at all. In today's hyper-connected world where every ping and headline demands instant reaction, this restraint feels almost rebellious. But it's the rebellion that preserves your peace of mind. Jung might describe it as individuation, the process of becoming whole by aligning your outer actions with your inner truth. If your values say kindness matters, then someone's attempt to provoke you into anger is irrelevant. If your values say honesty matters, gossip has no power to derail you. By holding on to what belongs to you, you naturally release what doesn't. Our culture glorifies outrage. We're pressured to have opinions on everything, to react instantly, to pick a side. But the Stoics would see this as a trap. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Most of what drains us never harms us directly. It's the imagined harm replayed in our minds that does the damage. By learning to pause before reacting, you create space to ask, is this mine to carry? If it isn't, you set it down. This doesn't mean ignoring injustice or refusing to act when it matters. The Stoics weren't passive. They believed in strong ethical action, but they didn't tie their peace of mind to the outcome. Their formula was simple. Do your part, release the rest. You can practice this daily. When the weather ruins your plans, don't curse the rain used the time differently. When someone cuts you off in traffic, don't carry it for hours. Remind yourself you'll never see them again. When a coworker's mood is sour, refuse to let it infect yours. Each of these is a mental rep in the gym, strengthening the muscle that allows you to remain steady no matter what life throws at you. There's also humility in this practice. Letting go means accepting you are not the master of everything. For many, that's difficult. But the Stoics saw it as liberation. When you stop trying to bend reality to your will in every detail, you discover peace in moving with it. You become less like a rigid wall and more like water able to flow around obstacles instead of exhausting yourself trying to smash them down. Jung might say this surrender is psychological maturity, the realization that safety is not in control, but in adaptability. The world will change. People will change. Circumstances will change. If your peace depends on freezing them in place, you'll always feel fragile. But if your peace depends only on your own choices, no one can take it from you. This was the Stoics' greatest discovery. When you stop obsessing over what you cannot control, you finally gain mastery over what you can. Your mind clears. Your decisions sharpen. You regain the energy to focus on your growth, your work, your relationships, the things that respond to your effort. And with time, you realize the things you let go of were never worth the weight you gave them. So the next time you feel pulled into something that isn't yours to fix, pause. Ask, will giving my energy to this improve my life, or will it leave me drained? If it's the latter, let it go. Not with bitterness, not with avoidance, but with calm indifference. Because your mental energy is the true currency of life, and the Stoics would remind you, spend it only where it counts. There's an emptiness that comes from holding back. You know the feeling you're in a project, a relationship, or chasing a goal, but you're only giving half of yourself, half your focus, half your heart. You tell yourself it's smart to save energy, to keep something in reserve, to avoid too much risk. But deep down, there's a quiet voice that asks, what would happen if I actually went all in? The Stoics had no patience for half measures. To them, a life worth living was a life lived with full intention. And intention meant committing completely to what you choose. If something is worth doing at all, it's worth doing with every ounce of effort you can give. Marcus Aurelius, who bore the crushing weight of empire, yet still kept a private journal of self-examination, reminded himself daily, concentrate every minute, like a Roman, on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness. He wasn't advocating grimness or tension. He was talking about respect, the respect of giving your full attention to the task before you. Whether it was leading armies, settling disputes, or writing philosophy, he understood this truth. The quality of your life is shaped by the quality of your attention, and divided attention is the enemy of depth. Carl Jung echoed the same principle. The least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it. Meaning is the key. When you choose something, whether a craft, a cause, or a relationship, you owe it more than mere presence. You owe it curiosity, engagement, and the willingness to endure its challenges. Anything less leaves you with the quiet ache of knowing you never really tested your limits. The Stoics would say that giving it all you've got isn't about perfection, it's about sincerity. Epictetus often told his students to apply themselves wholly to what is necessary. That means that once you decide something is worth your time, you approach it as if it were the only thing that mattered in that moment. Because effort is a reflection of character. To drift through life giving partial effort is, in their eyes, to drift through life with only a partial self. One of the biggest reasons people hold back is fear of failing, fear of embarrassment, fear of giving their all and still coming up short. But the Stoics flipped this idea on its head. They believed the true failure is in holding back, because then you never discover your real capacity. Seneca captured it perfectly. It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult. Going all in doesn't guarantee success, but it guarantees growth. Another trap is spreading yourself too thin. We say yes to too many things, and as a result, we can't give our full focus to any of them. The Stoics would urge you, choose carefully, then commit completely. Your time and energy are finite. If you dilute them across too many pursuits, nothing thrives. But if you direct them into fewer, deeply chosen goals, you create the conditions for mastery. Marcus Aurelius warned himself against being busy with many things, instead urging himself to act as a man aware of death's approach, yet fully devoted to unfinished work. Jung might describe the difference as fragmentation versus integration. When your energy is scattered, you live in pieces, each fragment chasing a different aim, none strong enough to create real impact. But when your values, your focus, and your actions all align toward one chosen aim, you live as an integrated self. That unity of purpose is powerful, not just in achievement, but in presence. People can feel when you're fully committed. It changes the way you carry yourself and the way opportunities seem to respond to you. There's humility in going all in as well. To commit fully is to admit you'll be tested, you'll stumble, you'll fail in ways that sting. But the Stoics never saw failure as final. They saw it as fuel for growth. The more fully you give of yourself, the more you learn about your limits and the more you expand them. Each setback becomes a teacher. That's why Epictetus advised his students to welcome challenges. They are proof you're truly engaged, not merely coasting. This applies to relationships as much as personal goals. Half-hearted presence in relationships erodes trust. When you show up distracted, divided, or reluctant, people feel it. Connection thrives on attention. If you value someone, whether a partner, a friend, or family, the Stoic way is to give them the honesty, time, and presence they deserve. This doesn't mean ignoring boundaries or overextending yourself. It means that when you are with someone, you are fully with them. In an age of constant distraction, this kind of presence is rare and unforgettable. The same principle applies to learning a skill or pursuing a craft. Dabbling is fine for exploration, but mastery requires depth. If you've ever witnessed a musician, an artist, or a craftsman who has dedicated decades to their work, you've seen what sustained commitment produces. The Stoics believed our capacity for excellence is not just a gift, it's a moral responsibility. To squander it on distraction or half-effort is to waste what life has entrusted to us. Jung would add that going all in has a transformative effect on the self. When you give yourself fully to something meaningful, you awaken parts of yourself that would otherwise lie dormant. You discover patience you didn't know you had, creativity you didn't know was there, strength that only pressure could uncover. In this way, giving your all isn't just about the task at hand, it's about becoming more fully yourself through the doing. But giving it all you've got doesn't mean burning yourself out or sacrificing your well-being. The Stoics valued reason and balance. Going all in is about depth, not recklessness. It's about knowing when to rest so you can return with strength. It's about setting boundaries that keep your effort sustainable. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to be like the rock that the waves crash upon steadfast, enduring not because the rock never moves, but because it doesn't exhaust itself in constant reaction. To live this way requires constant self-examination. The Stoics were relentless in asking, am I truly committed or am I holding back? Am I acting from my values or just moving through motions? This kind of honest questioning prevents mediocrity from creeping in unnoticed. And when you realize you're drifting, you can course correct either by recommitting fully or by stepping away from what no longer aligns with who you want to become. In the end, giving it all you've got is a choice made moment by moment. It's choosing depth over distraction, presence over pretense, and courage over comfort. The Stoics would remind us, life is short, and time is too precious to waste on half-effort living. Seneca put it clearly, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. So when you choose a goal, a relationship, or a craft, choose it fully. Show up with your whole self. Let your effort be so complete that regardless of outcome, you walk away knowing you didn't hold back. That knowledge is its own reward, and the Stoics would argue it's worth far more than trophies, titles, or applause, because in the end, the true measure of life is not what you owned, but how deeply you engaged with what you chose to do. Lesson 12. Ask why not. Most opportunities in life aren't lost because they were impossible. They're lost because we never tried. Not because we lacked the ability, but because we told ourselves stories about why we couldn't, why we shouldn't, or why we weren't. Ready. Think about those moments when an idea sparked in you, maybe a project you wanted to start, a trip you wanted to take, a conversation you wanted to have, and yet you hesitated. You let it slip by. You told yourself the timing wasn't right, that you needed more preparation, or that someone else would do it better. But what if, instead of building a wall of reasons why not, you flipped the script and simply asked, why not? If life is uncertain and tomorrow is never promised, then waiting endlessly for the perfect moment is the riskiest plan of all. The why not mindset is about meeting life with openness instead of hesitation, about seeing possibilities instead of only obstacles. Carl Jung touched on this when he said, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. Often hesitation isn't about the external situation, it's about the internal limits we've accepted without question. Asking, why not, forces us to confront those limits. Is this obstacle real, or is it just fear? Is the risk unbearable, or have I magnified it in my mind to shield myself from discomfort? The Stoics would remind us that courage is not the absence of fear, but action in spite of it. Every bold step feels heavy until you take it. Then, more often than not, you realize the weight was in your mind, not in the world. Why not becomes the lever that moves you from thought to action. But asking, why not, doesn't mean chasing every whim. The Stoics valued reason as much as bravery. Epictetus taught that action should align with principle and nature. So the question becomes, why not take this step if it serves my values, my growth, or the greater good? If the only thing holding you back is fear of failure, embarrassment, or judgment, that's exactly when why not should push you forward. But if the step violates your values or compromises your integrity, then why not becomes a reminder to stay your course. One of the subtle powers of why not is that it bypasses the perfectionism trap. Too many people wait until they feel ready until they've learned more, saved more, planned more. But readiness is often an illusion. The Stoics would say the path becomes clear only once you start walking it. Jung would add that why not is also an invitation to meet your shadow, the parts of yourself you avoid because they make you uncomfortable. Taking that step forces you to confront your fear of rejection, your resistance to uncertainty, or your doubts about worthiness. By saying why not, you agree to step into situations that stretch you, challenge you, and ultimately reveal more of who you really are. The truth is, every meaningful change in history began with someone asking, why not? Why not sail beyond the map? Why not stand up to injustice? Why not create what's never existed before? These weren't born of guarantees. They were born of possibility. And while your why not moments may not change the world on a global scale, they can transform your world entirely. Of course, asking why not comes with the risk of failure. The Stoics never denied that. You may start the business and watch it collapse. You may ask for the raise and be turned down. You may take the trip and run into setbacks. But their wisdom was this: the value isn't only in the outcome, it's in the courage of the attempt. Seneca once wrote, "It is better to conquer our grief than to deceive it." In the same way, it is better to face the truth of a failure than to live with the quiet grief of never trying. Practicing why not doesn't mean leaping recklessly into chaos. It means deliberately training your mind to stop letting fear sit in the driver's seat. And you can begin small. Why not speak up in that meeting instead of staying silent? Why not reach out to the person you've been meaning to call? Why not learn the skill you've convinced yourself you aren't creative enough for? Each small act builds the muscle of courage. And like any muscle, the more you use it, the stronger it becomes, and the easier it is to face bigger leaps. The Stoics also believe fortune favors the prepared mind. Why not doesn't mean ignoring preparation. It means not waiting for the illusion of perfect conditions before taking action. If you've prepared reasonably, the rest belongs to life, not to you. Take the step. Let the outcome be what it will. Jung might say that why not acts as a bridge between the life you're living and the life you could be living. Each time you ask it, you create a crack in the walls of your routine, a small opening where light can get in. Over time, those cracks become doorways. You begin to see that the limits you once thought were permanent are, in fact, movable. The Stoics would add another layer to this truth. Why not keeps life vibrant? Routine can stabilize us, but it can also dull us if left unquestioned. Why not brings curiosity back into your days? Why not take a different route home? Why not try a hobby that feels out of character? Why not spend a day without your phone? These experiments may look trivial, but they sharpen your perspective, keep your spirit alive to possibility, and remind you that life is meant to be lived, not just endured. And here's the final truth the Stoics would leave us with: the cost of never asking why not is far greater than the cost of trying and failing. You can recover from setbacks, you can rebuild after a loss, but you cannot recover the years spent on the sidelines, watching life from a safe distance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." The why not mindset is the antidote to that fear, it puts you back in the arena. So the next time you feel the tug of an idea, a desire, or an opportunity that scares you just enough to make you hesitate, pause and ask yourself, why not? And then answer honestly. If the only thing standing in your way is fear of discomfort or fear of failure, that's your signal. Take the step, send the message, book the ticket, start the thing, because every leap that changes your life begins with that simple challenge to yourself and the courage to answer it. In the end, life isn't measured by how long you live, but by how deeply you choose to live. Every moment is an invitation to embody these Stoic truths, not in theory, but in the way you think, act, and show up for yourself and for others. Thank you for walking this path with me, for choosing growth over comfort, and for seeking strength, clarity, and purpose. And if you're ready to keep questioning, keep growing, and keep becoming, then don't stop here. Watch one of the suggested videos on your screen now and continue your journey. If this message resonates with you, drop a comment below. Which Stoic truth do you want to live more fully? Courage, patience, or self-mastery? And if you're ready to keep building inner strength, explore our StoicCraft playlist for more lessons you can apply today.